We have a picture this evening of what Ontario's plan to reopen looks like, but the Premier says health experts and the virus itself will determine the timeline. The number of new COVID-19 cases in Ontario is up again today. There are 329 new cases of the virus in Ontario for a total of 21,236. To a developing story out of Toronto now, a daytime crash has left 3 children and a woman dead. A man was also taken to hospital in life-threatening condition. A number of others suffered lesser injuries, but the total number injured remains unknown. Yeah, it's actually quite an active scene right now, so I'm sure you can see behind me that the RCMP are here at the gate at one of the entrances to Rideau Hall. That gate is open, and in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so, we actually saw what looked like a small robot on wheels start to roll through the grounds and approach a pickup truck that we can see. It'll be probably impossible for you to see from this angle. It is a bit kind of further into the grounds. What we know is that this isn't going to be enforced on the Ontario side of the border. So police in Ontario say that they don't have plans to enforce this. This is very much something that's going to be happening on the Quebec side. We were speaking earlier and you were mentioning that you have been in touch with a lot of the families of the victims who lost their lives who are connected here to Ottawa. Tell me what that's been like the last 24 hours or so.
I can say it was the hardest day of my life.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since 176 people died in that Ukraine Airlines crash outside Tehran. The remains of many of the victims have since been buried in Iran. Donald Trump's impeachment trial got underway today. That pitted Democrats against Republicans when it came to the question of how the trial should proceed in the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate. Prosecution in the case involving the death of George Floyd will start next March. A Minneapolis judge today decided that at least one of the former police officers charged in the death will stand trial at that time, but he said it remains to be seen if all 4 of the men will be tried then. Well, I think probably the number one thing is that a lot of these experts are parents themselves. So they're also grappling with this question, this decision of whether to send their own kids back to school. So I've been speaking with experts. I've also been listening back to recent CBC interviews that my colleagues have done this week, listening to virtual press conferences and public forums. So a wide variety of experts that we've been listening to. Many said that they plan on sending their own children back to school, and there's a number of different reasons for that. So some key risk factors that you should be considering. These are from Ottawa's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Vera Etches. She said on our show yesterday evening she plans on sending her own kids back. So things to consider. First of all, your child's health conditions.
What have you learned?
Yeah, that's right. So the response was tremendous. I've heard from a lot of parents with more questions and also sharing their stories. One of the things that keeps coming up is plexiglass, whether it's going to be between the desks. Now, Ottawa Public Health has said that the first line of defense is really masks, distancing, that sort of thing.
Cadavers are normally kept in morgues like this one in Montreal, but a hospital workers union in Ottawa says overcrowding there has led to unorthodox solutions and creepy situations.
A lot of the housekeepers go up to the floors and they go into the conference rooms and they're caught off guard when they walk in and there's a body that's been covered up.
In early December, workers at 2 hospital facilities started complaining to the union, telling Lou Burry the morgues were full.
Beginning of December, it was pretty cold in Ottawa, so they would leave the doors open to keep the room refrigerated. Makeshift refrigeration, I feel like.
Burry was also told of bodies kept in patient rooms and parts of the ER.
I couldn't understand why this was happening. I don't understand why it is happening.
The Ottawa Hospital has not directly addressed that why. It did say when capacity at these morgues is reached, it may be necessary for the deceased to be taken care of in temporary spaces that respect the requirements for dignity and procedure. The hospital said conference rooms and ward beds are not used to store cadavers. When CBC News asked for clarification, have conference rooms ever been used, the hospital declined to comment further. This funeral home manager says he's not surprised that Ottawa's morgues are full.
The hospital themselves were never built to hold a lot of bodies.
He says it's a problem across the country. Last September, Alberta launched an investigation after photos emerged of bodies being stored in refrigerated trailers rented by the coroner's office.
We worry a little bit about what's being done and how the bodies are being cared for.
Backlogs get even worse when there's no next of kin to claim a body.
Because somebody has to take possession of a body. You can't move a body unless you have authority.
Ontario's health ministry says hospitals are responsible for day-to-day management of their facilities, and it's confident the Ottawa Hospital will address overcrowding at the morgues. Hilary Johnstone, CBC News, Ottawa.